WBC cells or leukocytes, which have been broadly categorized into two main types, namely granulocytes and agranulocytes. Along with blood, there is one more fluid found in the body, and that is called as lymph. What is prothrombin? It is an unstable protein produced by the liver but present in the plasma of the blood. Lymphocytes defend our body from disease-causing organisms and acts as WBC cells. Hello everyone, welcome back to session 5 of this interesting chapter called Body Fluids and Circulation. Myself B. Shobharani from the Department of Biology, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence. Hope you remember we have studied in the last session about the blood corpuscles, that is the formed elements, namely the RBC, the WBC and the blood platelets. We also know how important RBC cells are for the body, and as you know, they are the carriers of oxygen. They have a very important red pigment, protein pigment called hemoglobin. Then we studied about WBC cells or leukocytes, which have been broadly categorized into two main types, namely granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granulocytes included neutrophils, basophils and eosinophils, and agranulocytes included lymphocytes and monocytes. And we also studied about thrombocytes and platelets, how important they are to bring about the clotting process. As you all know, in our daily life, we come across a small injury or a cut or a wound, and there is oozing of blood, but immediately the blood clots. As you know, it is a very, very important process. Clotting process need to happen. If not, there will be continuous oozing of blood and the person may collapse or die. In today's session, we are going to study about the required elements for blood clotting. So what are the elements that are required for the blood clotting? As we know, if at all there is a cut or a wound, there is oozing of blood, but immediately when the blood comes in contact with the atmospheric oxygen, you can see the process of formation of a fibrin or a clot, thereby preventing further loss of blood. Now let us understand what is the mechanism that is involved in the process of blood clotting. So what are the requirements of blood clotting? Here you can see the deep vein of the leg, normal blood flow in vein. So deep vein thrombosis. Here you can see what will happen if blood clots. See here, you can see the clots. Here you can see the free flow of blood. So even inside the body also sometimes clotting will take place. Now what are the requirements for the blood clotting? According to the scientists by name Best and Taylor theory, the blood clotting requires 4 important substances, namely prothrombin, thrombokinase, fibrinogen and calcium ions. So what are according to the Best and Taylor's theory, for the clotting to happen, what are the 4 basic requirements? One is called prothrombin, thrombokinase, fibrinogen and calcium ions. Now, let us move on to one by one. Let us study what is prothrombin, what is thrombokinase, what is fibrinogen, and how calcium ions help. Moving on to the first one, that is prothrombin. Second one is thrombokinase. Third one is fibrinogen. And fourth one is calcium ions. Moving on to the first one, that is prothrombin. What is prothrombin? It is an unstable protein by the liver and present in the blood plasma. So what is prothrombin? It is an unstable protein produced by the liver but present in the plasma of the blood. What is thrombokinase? It is a lipoprotein. It is a conjugated protein called lipoprotein. Lipid plus protein is called as a conjugated protein, lipoprotein enzyme present in the tissue. So kinase means what? It is an enzyme. Thrombokinase. So it is a lipoprotein enzyme present in the tissues. Fibrinogen, it is a soluble protein produced by the liver but present in the plasma. Fibrinogen, fibrin, immediately it dissolves. So it is soluble protein. Then calcium ions, as you all know, it is an inorganic constituent present in the blood plasma. So what are the requirements for blood clotting? According to Best and Taylor, 4 very important requirements are needed for blood clotting. One is called prothrombin, second one is called thrombokinase, third one is called fibrinogen, and the fourth one is the calcium ions. So what is prothrombin? It is an unstable protein produced by the liver and present in the blood plasma. Then thrombokinase, the very word itself will tell you, as you all know, the enzymes end with the suffix ase, thrombokinase. So it is a lipoprotein enzyme present in the tissues. And fibrinogen, it is a soluble protein produced by the liver but present in the plasma. Calcium ions, as we know, it is an inorganic constituent present in the blood plasma. All these 4 are the very important requirements for blood clotting. Right? Now, let us understand the further concepts. So, I think when there is an injury, so what is the mechanism that is involved in the process of clotting? When there is an injury, thrombokinase is released by the injured cells. So what will happen? Suppose by chance there is a cut or a small injury. What will happen? Thrombokinase, an enzyme, is released by the injured cells which is found in the plasma. Right? Next, thrombokinase converts prothrombin into thrombin. So what is the very function of this enzyme? To convert prothrombin into thrombin in the presence of calcium ions. Next, thrombin acts on the soluble proteins called fibrinogen to convert into insoluble fibrin threads. So these fibrin threads entangle with the blood cells and forms a clot called thrombus. See the mechanism. What a beautiful mechanism for blood clotting. All this happens in a fraction of a second without our knowledge. So that is what we call it as internal environment or homeostatic condition. So all this happens on its own and it has been so very meticulous in happening. So imagine, so that for example, when there is an injury, so thrombokinase is released by the injured cells, and this thrombokinase converts prothrombin into thrombin in the presence of calcium ions. Thrombin acts on the soluble proteins called fibrinogen to convert into insoluble fibrin threads, and these fibrin threads entangle with the blood cells and forms a clot called thrombus. Now, diagrammatically, we'll see the representation how the process of clotting takes place. So, prothrombin is acted upon by thrombokinase. So, it will convert active thrombin to present in plasma under the influence of calcium ions and thrombokinase. Active thrombin is converted into insoluble fibrin. So, then that is, it is converted into fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin, and that forms a clot. So that is a thrombus. So soluble protein present in the plasma, threads entangle the RBCs, and you can see the clot. So prothrombin is acted upon by the enzyme called thrombokinase under the influence of calcium ions, and it will convert active thrombin, that is prothrombin, into thrombin, and thrombin will convert fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin, and insoluble fibrin is converted into clot, and that is what we call it as thrombus. Now, moving on to the next very important tissue called lymph or tissue fluid. As I said, along with blood, there is one more fluid found in the body, and that is called as lymph. Here you can see the lymphatic capillaries, the vein, lymphatic vessels, and capillary bed. So here, what is lymph or tissue fluid then? The blood passing through the capillaries in tissue, some water along with many smaller water-soluble substances and lymphocytes move out into the spaces between the cells of the tissues, and this fluid is called the interstitial fluid or tissue fluid or lymph. See, what is lymph then? The blood passing through the capillaries. Here you can see the blood passing through the capillaries. Here you can see the blood the green color one. So the blood passing through the capillaries in tissue, some water along with many smaller water soluble substances and lymphocytes. T lymphocytes, as I said, they are nothing but what? Barrier. They are the protectors of a body from the disease causing organisms. They also contain antibodies, right? So lymphocytes move out into the spaces between the cells of the tissues, and this fluid is called the interstitial fluid or tissue fluid or lymph. So moving on to the composition. So what is the composition of the lymph and functions of the lymph? Composition. It is composed of fluid matrix called plasma, white blood corpuscles. That is why I said even lymphocytes defend our body from disease-causing organism and acts as WBC cells. So it is composed of fluid matrix called plasma, white blood corpuscles or leukocytes, contains less amount of protein than plasma, and it is devoid of RBCs. What do you mean by devoid of RBCs? Without RBCs. Without RBCs. So what is the composition of lymph? What is the chemically lymph made up of? Just like how what is blood made up of? Blood is made up of the liquid part called plasma and the formed elements or corpuscles. In a similar way, the lymph is composed of fluid matrix called plasma, white blood corpuscles or leukocytes, contains less amount of protein than plasma, and it is devoid of RBCs, not having RBC. Moving on to the function, very important role played by the lymph. So here you can see the lymphatic vessels play an important role in absorption of dietary fats, delivering the fats to the bloodstream, collecting excess of interstitial fluids, delivering excess fluids to the bloodstream, delivering foreign particles to the lymph nodes. So here you can see how it is. So lymph helps for exchange of nutrients, gases, etc. between the blood and the cells. Lymphocytes present in the lymph are responsible for the immune responses of the body. So lymph helps for exchange of nutrients, gases, etc. between the blood and the cells, and lymphocytes present in the lymph are responsible for the immune responses of the body. So even lymphocyte is also taking care of developing immunity inside our body against the disease causing organisms. So what is the chemical composition of lymph? It is composed of fluid matrix called plasma, white blood corpuscles or leukocytes, contains less amount of protein than plasma, and it is devoid of RBCs, without RBCs. Function: lymph helps for exchange of nutrients, gases between the blood and the cells, and also the lymphocytes which is present in the lymph is responsible for the immune responses of the body. Hope you have understood the concepts what I have explained in this particular session. So I'll be back with some more interesting concepts of this interesting chapter called Body Fluids and Circulation. So till then, goodbye and thank you.